Welcome, everybody, to another live recording of the Business Travel 360, linking the travel industry podcast, where we discuss travel industry news you're talking about right here on LinkedIn. My name is Rian, and I'm one of your hosts today. I'm a co-founder at Agentivity, where we ensure TMCs operate as efficiently as possible through the effective use of data. So if that sounds of interest, please do get in touch. As usual, I'm joined by Anne and Ash to help me talk through the stories. Over to you, Anne.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Anne. I'm an independent consultant with LeapShift, and I'm happy to help you with anything related to distribution, such as offer and order, NDC. Over to you, Ash.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ash. I'm the host of a weekly business travel podcast called What's Up in Business Travel, where we give you the important updates in under 15 minutes. Additionally, I'm the Vice President of Client Success at Traxo, and this is linking the travel industry.
Well, thank you both, and welcome back to us all. Sorry if we didn't have an event last week. I had to travel. I was in the States, and I suspect half of our audience is probably traveling or already in the States at GBTA this week, right? Ash, are you there?
I'm in beautiful, sunny Chicago.
Very nice. So we wish everybody and all our listeners a happy GBTA. Also, because I wasn't here last week, we thought we would just run through some of the many stories from the previous week, which was week 29, because it is worth mentioning. And I'd love to hear what you think of the story about the rumors, it wasn't confirmed, that some of the Swiss international cabin crew were refusing to add the words Lufthansa Group to their in-flight announcement, right? They wanted to distance themselves from Lufthansa. And I have to add, after having flown them long haul to Seattle last week, I can't blame Swiss at all. But what do you make of it?
I'm not surprised at all. This has been a conflict, I would say, ever since, the takeover of Swiss. Well, I have to remind you, though, Swiss went bankrupt, and it was a good thing that Lufthansa saved them. But I'm not surprised, because there is this rivalry within the airline, and it's bad. They need to address that problem.
And then some other stories which caught our eyes, apart from the shocking thing about the Iberia Air Europa planes. But let's go on. JetBlue spending almost $60 million on ex-Spirit Airlines slots at New York's LaGuardia. Ash, are slots at LaGuardia worth that much?
For the longest time, we were talking about mergers of Spirit with other airlines. And I would say that JetBlue actually got themselves a great deal, because instead of buying an airline and taking those slots that they want, they actually only spent $58 million for those same slots. It was a total win by JetBlue. And really what JetBlue is trying to do is become the Alaska Airlines of the East Coast with their expansion in Fort Lauderdale. Like, this fits really well with JetBlue's strategy for sure.
Okay, cool. Because I have to say, when I landed in Seattle, you could only see a sea of Alaska and a sea of Delta planes, right? That's all you could see there. There was some amazing news out of IATA that the next Director General, and I won't comment on the title because honestly, how old school is that title? Anyway, the next Director General at IATA is going to be Sadia Zahidi, who's coming over from the World Economic Forum, and she will also be the first woman in that role. So phenomenal appointment, right, Anne?
Well, thank goodness there's finally a woman. I mean, that I can say. I have my opinions about the World Economic Forum, and especially after reading Careless People, which then I have even more opinions about it. But that could be very refreshing, right? Anything can be really refreshing.
Well, I hope she starts by changing the title. Director General is not fit for 2026. It just sounds so old school, but I should stop commenting. Yeah, there were some interesting comments out of Emirates. Sir Tim Clark rejecting the first 10 original Boeing 777Xs that were made, saying they could go to a canning factory and the 10 could be put to good use. So, Ash, let's hear Anne's one sentence on this. I suspect you might have a few more things to say.
I really am speechless when it comes to this, but it was so funny, right? It was so funny, his comments.
There were some unfounded reports that United said they'll take them, right? But it turns out they denied those reports in the end, so...
I've been long advocating that there is some major issues. I don't think Emirates goes into great detail as to what their reasons are, besides just a generic statement. I would love to know those reasons in more detail. Well, what is wrong with these 777s? Historically, 777s have not had a problem at Boeing. I can't refer to anything to say, oh, it was because of this or that. So this is the first time I'm hearing that the 777 has an issue.
And then the last story from the previous week was something I picked up outside of LinkedIn, but it did catch my attention because I do think it's a ticking time bomb. And this is about the changes we talked about, the recent changes to the EU passenger rights. And there's a potential interpretation that in some cases, when the airline cancels the flight, even the TMC service fees are up for refund if you read the things correctly. So a lot of people have been asking for more clarification on this, but that to me was something that was quite strange. Right, Anne?
Yes, and this is where my one sentence comes in and not on the previous one. When are we going to stop with transaction fees? We sort of end transaction fees and then the problem is gone.
You're talking about the service fee from the TMC, right? They're performing a service. Why can't they charge for it?
Why can't they charge in some other way? Then it shouldn't matter that you have a disruption. And of course, you're going to do work helping the customer with that.
Fee for your labor, right?
Yeah.
Ash, what did you make of that?
I think what Anne is trying to get to is the fact that the relationship between the TMC and the corporation is a different type of relationship than the relationship between a leisure traveler and the agency. So for me, when you play by these rules where you want to line item a transaction fee on every single itinerary that the traveler requests from you, you will end up in a situation where this can happen. And so if this ends up being the case that TMCs have to refund, then that's just the nature of the business and they'll have to accept that because I don't think there's any other recourse. The solution that Anne is suggesting is that do away with transaction fee, get into a management fee relationship. This has been in conversation for decades in the industry. The TMCs are going to change because they're going to be forced to in this situation.
Well, we'll keep a watch on that one for sure. Let's turn to week 30, which was last week. And the first story that stood out for us there was this very interesting story, which was there was a plane standing overnight in Košice airport in Slovakia, and it was meant to operate a service the next morning to Vienna. And somebody managed to break into the perimeter of the airport and eventually into the aircraft and use it for a bit of an overnight sleepover. And of course, the crew discovered this person the next morning. So, Ash, what do you make of this?
Well, wasn't this the airport we were talking about last 2 weeks ago?
No, he talked about Bratislava Airport. Also in Slovakia, by the way.
So that's what I was going to say. I was going to go there, but I guess I don't have much to say besides, well, that's just what happens.
And then, seeing as we are living in 2026, this headline seems to be normal now. Another airline banning humanoid and animal-like robots from their flights. Now, all three of us are in agreement with this one. I can't believe this was actually considered okay before, right?
Well, it wasn't okay. It was just never said. So, it became not okay once somebody tried to take a robot on a plane. That happened about a month ago or 2 months ago, if I remember correctly. And that's when the airline started to have these announcements come out where, we're banning these robots. And I think it's the right move. There's a lot of safety questions here and whether this robot can malfunction mid-flight and create a bigger problem. So I think that this is the right move. And I think that until some point in the future, this should continue with a standard across the entire industry.
I do not want to be flying with something with a battery that huge and with the ability to punch a hole in the wall. So thank you very much. I'm all on board for this being banned, for sure. Okay, we've got a few stories more, quite a few actually, that we want to cover, but I do want to just turn to the audience and say thank you so much for giving us your time on a Monday. We really appreciate that. The room is nice and full. The purpose here of linking the travel industry is to link more of us. So if you want to comment and tell us where you're listening from, and if you are a GPTA, also let us know and give us a shout out. We'll put your name on screen and we'll get a few more connection requests ideally sent out to you. But just to say thank you to our audience for being here today. We appreciate that. Okay, let's get back to our list of stories. Interesting story that emerged with Emirates. They faced a lot of backlash because they had a large plane, the A380, with 373 passengers on it, bound for an airport in China, Hangzhou, and it was diverted because of thunderstorms and weather. And at the new airport, they just could not get these people off. And eventually the people spent the entire night, overnight, on the aircraft and then flew on to the original destination airport the next morning. I have to say, does not sound right. Right, Anne?
No, of course it's not right. To me, this is inexplicable. I just don't understand it because it should be part of sort of protocol. How do you deal with this? And I would have been a bit more sort of sympathetic had it been in a different country en route, to China. Yeah. Totally inexplicable to me. You've got to have procedures for this, how you deal with it.
I see there are comments coming through. Gladwell listening in from Kenya. Thank you so much, Gladwell, for telling us that. Gladwell Mugo. Up high again out of Pune, and Iman from Tunisia. as we know, TAP Air Portugal is up for sale, or a stake in them is up for sale, and both Air France KLM and Lufthansa Group submitted bids for them. Now, Lufthansa, as we know, has been well invested in ITA, inspired by Alitalia, and I think they've been kept very busy there. Personally, I can't see a cultural fit there between Lufthansa, TAP, and Alitalia. I don't know about you, Anne, but for me, the stronger contender there surely is Air France KLM. Do you agree?
I really don't understand how it sort of fits into Lufthansa Group. There's lots of stuff we don't understand.
Including Lufthansa. I've recently experienced them. Let me tell you, they are too big to take on another airline. I'm absolutely convinced about that. But Ash, maybe they'll be convinced to be calling this EU Airlines, right?
EU Airlines, yeah.
Just with the euro as the logo.
Yes, on the tail. Yes, perfect. We are once again back with this horror of power banks on planes. There was a power bank that caught fire in the overhead bin on a China Eastern flight. The video of it is absolutely horrifying. I would not recommend you watch it if you're a nervous flyer. That was a terrible thing to be seen. But again, this comes back to our desire, right, Ash, that all power banks should just be banned on flights.
Look, at the end of the day, the airlines can only do so much, and there's just so many security levels that you can create. I think that passengers, they need to manage this themselves. You cannot take a power bank. I mean, they tell you this all the time, and you have to take responsibility. So there should be some consequences. There should be some banning of you not being able to fly for the rest of your life. There should be a huge amount of fine that you have to pay when this happens, and this is your situation. I mean, you could cause the death of every single person on the plane.
Yeah, I didn't mention that luckily they caught this while I was taxiing to the terminal, right? Not in the air. Absolutely, yes. Should just not be allowed. And I can't see the need for it. All the planes these days have got a USB port. You can charge your phone from the plane. You know, why take a power bank? There's no need for it. Some tech news. Both Navan and Vibe have announced last week that they are deploying MCP service, the Model Context Protocol servers. I mean, from a tech perspective, I really like this. Good on them both for doing so. This is the way to go. And then there's some further sort of tech investment. BCD Travel have invested in Amgine. And surprisingly for me, with a specific focus on their group automation flow bookings, I wasn't aware that that's something Amgine did. I wanted to reach out to Greg before this to ask him about that, but unfortunately I couldn't. And I suspect he's quite busy at GBTA this week. But still, interesting investment there, right, Anne?
Absolutely. And, you know, I keep harping on about groups and how much money there is in groups, how it's like in the dark ages. This is an area that so needs automation and help. So it's just really good to see some development. We never hear about groups, do we? People sit there with their Excel spreadsheets and so go on, yeah, it's been the same for 40 years. It's not going to change.
I need to defend a few people here. So I'm going to shout out to Sports Corp Travel, who do a lot of groups for sports travel, and they have developed a brilliant in-house solution themselves. And it's doing very well for them. So kudos to Sports Corp. But admittingly, before that, yes, Excel spreadsheets. So yeah, it is needed. Yeah. Any comments, Ash?
This may be the story of the week. The partnership between these two companies is going to really enhance the ability of both of them. And for Amgine, this is not their first TMC relationship. So this is their first big TMC relationship. BCD makes very intentional decisions. And this partnership with Amgine is very intentional. I don't think that this is just going to solve their group flows. This is going to extend well past that into the regular business travel and corporate travel space within BCD. They will take their first step with groups, of course, being the most complex and complicated. If you can make groups work, you can definitely make individual travel work without a doubt for corporate travelers. So this is a long-term relationship. This is going to automate a lot of that manual effort that agents have to make on a regular basis when it comes to back and forth correspondence, reviewing emails, deciding on how to respond. And because Amgine already has all of this technology and they understand the flow of all of these technologies, having worked with other agencies, they are going to have extremely effective and very intentional value created within the BCD world. And this is a big, big story. And I'm sure both these companies are super excited to be talking about this at GBTA, because if they do this really well, Rian and Ann, they're going to be able to be very competitive from a price perspective, because the number one cost area for a TMC is how to resolve those emails and how to handle the manual efforts within their processes, because we know it's very manual, right? We know that. So this is a great way for them to get past that. And I'm looking forward to them coming out with some really interesting designs as a result of this. I get so excited about this because this is really, really that great of a partnership, and I'm looking forward to into it.
This is where I am surprised about the mention specifically on groups, right, where they do so much other things, because we are seeing agents investing more and more and more in interceptors of that interaction with the customer, right, to make it more smooth and automated. So it ultimately benefits the customer as well. So that's great. Susan Enes in Sydney has joined us. She says, sorry, she's a bit late, but thank you anyway, Susan. I mean, by the time you listen to us, it's already very late. So we are definitely forgiving you for that one. But related to this, I saw the announcement that Expedia has done a full acquisition of the trip planning AI solution, Layla. We'll probably talk about that next week. So again, just a related story. Okay, and then I think the last story on my list before we get to potential extra stories is the interesting, reporting out of Ethiopia with Ethiopian Airlines. They've reported a $4.5 billion in revenue in the past 6 months alone, which is a 14% rise from the previous period. And they've also produced some impressive statistics around their cargo operations and fleet capacity, and indeed route and destination expansion. So, just so good to see. And I spotted the tail fin of an Ethiopian plane being pulled past us at Frankfurt Airport, and I took a very nice photo of it, and it was quite, impressive to see. It was a brand spanking new plane, but I'm so impressed with Ethiopian. And don't forget, this is still government run.
I'm super impressed with Ethiopian, and I've had the privilege visiting them, and they just impressed me enormously. They just improve consistently, right? It just gets better and better. Well done.
So those were the stories on my list. I don't know. And do you have an extra story for us?
No, I don't, since we had 2 weeks to cover.
Yes. Now, you see, we rushed through it so much, we actually got there quicker than we thought. So let's see. And what about you, Ash? Anything extra up your sleeve?
I throw in a story since we have some time here. So we talked earlier about JetBlue doing well because of the Spirit slots, while Frontier is also doing well. They just reported a 38% improvement year over year on revenue. This was their second quarter, so that's really, really big. And of course, we can say, well, Spirit's gone, so that's the LCC market. Frontier's going to pick up those spots, and they have. But they also did it because of their co-branded credit card earnings, which has definitely played in their favor for their second quarter. So Frontier is responding well. And we're expecting all the other airlines that competed against Spirit to do well because, of course, now they can maybe charge a little bit more, right? You don't have to do those $29 fares anymore. Charge a little bit more, give people good value for the money they're paying, and improve your airline, for crying out loud. I think this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Very cool. About 38%, that's massive. So absolutely very good. Okay, so I think that is a wrap. There we go. So thank you for all of those who joined us today. We've had a very full room, so thank you. Thank you for all the comments. We appreciate that. We do this weekly, as Ash will remind us, but thank you to you both. Over to you, Anne.
Thanks, everyone, and I'm particularly pleased to see Aslan joining. Over to you, Ash.
Thank you all for joining today's live recording of Linking the Travel Industry. We record this podcast live every week on Monday. We ask that you share this event with others that you know. Chances are high that if you enjoyed today's session, those that you know will as well. If you ever missed a show because of time zone or availability, the podcast is available on businesstravel360.com. This is Linking the Travel Industry, signing off.